It's episode 29 of Chit Chat, and we are ready for a deep dive into the Games of Essen. We haven't played all of the games, but we have played a lot of the major releases. We're ready to share our initial reaction and let you know what we thought. Welcome back to Chit Chat. This is episode 29, or 29 and a half, really. We had some technical difficulties last time, so thanks for being patient for this next episode of Chit Chat. Essen is behind us. We didn't go, but we have a whole bunch of the games from Essen, and that's what we've been playing. So we're going to actually spend this episode talking about sort of the Essen Hall, if you will, as we've played it. So we've played a lot of them. We haven't played all of them. So we're going to share some of our experiences with a lot of those games.
1,500 of them.
Yeah, we haven't played all 1,500. We're getting close, though. But we've played some of the ones that were on our list, for sure. But before we get to all of that, we've got a winner from last episode.
Yeah, so Human Era, Christopher Parker, you have won. All you need to do is contact us at manversusmeeple@gmail.com. Everyone else, this week we're giving away Realm of Sand and also Siege Storm.
Yep.
So make a comment below and you'll automatically be entered to win.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to dive right in to, this is kind of effectively a big what we've been playing episode, but it's all going to be Essen related.
Yeah.
So what have you been playing? Don't steal mine.
I don't know what I know what yours is going to be. So let me start with the one I actually played most recently, so it's more fresh in my memory. That's Crown of Amara, which is an interesting. It's a rondel game where you have two simultaneous rondels happening at the same time. Your country rondel, where you're out in the country gathering all your resources, and then your city rondel, where you're bringing those resources back to the city, spending them on either population points or building points. And it's an interesting game because you have two tracks. You have your buildings track, where you're building buildings, and your people track, where you're bringing people to your city. And if you have more people than buildings, they don't have a place to live, so you don't score maximum points.
So you have to balance.
So you have to balance. You're going to score the lower of those two tracks. So your goal is to kind of try to balance them with this by moving around this rondel and taking or simultaneously moving around two different rondels.
And the two rondels are basically two boards sitting next to each other?
Yeah, they're two different boards sitting next to each other, yeah.
I've heard from no less than 4 or 5 people in the past week how good that game is. In fact, enough to go online and order the game myself, having not researched much of it prior to Essen, but I've heard it's really, really good.
Yeah, it was a really tight experience.
Really?
I feel like right after I played it, I was kind of like, well, it almost felt like every time I played the game, I would just do the same thing. And that was my takeaway. Like, if I played this again, I would just do the same thing. But then I thought about it more, and I started to think about all the different things I could do. And my friend Ryan, who's watching, is going to appreciate this. I've been thinking all night last night, and then I was like, okay, well, I guess there are tons of different possible ways to score points, and now I really want to play it again.
Well, I'm going to bring up one we'll probably all talk about quite a bit, and that is Underwater Cities. It's from Vladimir Suchi, the guy who designed Pulsar 2849.
Last Will,
Prodigal's Club. Pulsar was a favorite of mine last year. I was looking forward to this. I'd researched a little bit before Essen and noticed, the main mechanic of worker placement, but you also are marrying a card to that and then potentially taking 2 actions if you do it really well to sort of make efficiency out of it. It's so much more deep than that. There's an insane, how many cards?
Over 200.
Over 200 cards, and while some of the art is shared, the abilities on all these cards are completely different.
Yep.
And I haven't played it 2-player, which I'm really looking forward to. This game is probably going to be on my short list for top 10 of the year.
I mean, this may be sacrilege, but I feel like it's a better Terraforming Mars. I like the experience better. The only thing I think this game is missing and I say Terraforming Mars, if you guys watch our review, you'll understand why, but I'll repeat that here. With the number of cards, you're getting that huge variability in the engine that you're building. So by the end of the game, you're going to have probably anywhere between 8 to 12 to 15 cards that are sitting off to the side of your player board that are your engine. Same thing that happens in Terraforming Mars. The only difference is you're pretty much dealt what you get from the top of the deck. Where in Terraforming Mars you have the draft, which is exciting for people like us that like that part of it. However, I like the gameplay in this more. I like that it's not a race, so to speak. I mean, Terraforming Mars has that race where you're not really sure when the game is going to end because you have to hit all those 3 limiters at the same time. Where this, it's 10 rounds, so you can plan for that. You can plan for the production phases that happen 3 times in the game. You can plan for the end game scoring. All that is very different than Terraforming Mars, but it has that same DNA, I think, as that game.
It does seem to be compared to it quite a bit. I would say one of the big differences, and again, I love Terraforming Mars, but one of the things I like about this one that's distinctly different is that player board you have in front of you. You're building this underwater city with all these little cities and structures around them and connecting them with tunnels, and that married with the cards that you have is what builds your engine. In fact, that player board's really the core of building your engine in terms of the resources that you're going to collect and then what you can then use those resources for to add to that city. So it's a really, really fascinating game.
Yeah, I understand the comparison to Terraforming Mars. Personally, I'm never going to say that I would take one over the other because I am a huge Terraforming Mars fan. And going into Essen, Underwater Cities was my #1 most anticipated title. So I'm very glad that it did not disappoint. It ended up so far being the favorite of all the Essen games I've played so far. But I definitely see what people are talking about. But the mechanics in which you build that engine and the way you go about using that engine are so vastly different between Terraforming Mars that while the feeling of playing the games is similar, like the parts of your brain you're using are very different.
Yeah, it's a totally different game mechanically.
Sure.
It just has that sort of, and I don't want to use the word abstract, but this vague feeling of like, this pushes the same buttons for me that Terraforming Mars does.
I do worry about right now as it sits. I feel like the strategy I've used has been really strong, and I think that this game, there's no doubt it's only going to be expanded from here out, but there's a strategy in the game right now that's kind of the go-to strategy, I think, the one that's going to win.
You've used it very successfully a couple times.
To be fair, I think that it's just the most obvious strategy, right? Like it takes a strategy that's already giving you victory points, which is building these farms, and making that strategy better. And I think it's easy to look at those cards and say, well, this pairing is going to generate me a ton of victory points. But I think that there are a lot of other combos just as powerful.
Maybe.
Don't see. They're not as easy to see after
You'll
a
have
play
to play
or
it
two.
multiple times to figure if that's true or not, because the inherent victory points that those buildings give you round after round far outweigh the end of the game scoring points you're going to get from spending all your resources to build those diverse cities. So I don't know. I think it's a game that's only going to get better with expansions, and I think that will be eliminated. The game I want to talk about from Essen that I've played multiple times is Blackout Hong Kong. We haven't done a review on it, so this is kind of a spoiler. It's very ugly. I don't like the graphic design. I don't like the art in the game, but I love the gameplay. Alexander Pfister is one of my favorite designers. And this takes some of the aspects of Mombasa. If you've played Mombasa before, you've played with that player board where you have your actions that go below your player board, and those actions are no longer available until you cycle them back up in your hand. But these cards now will go to a third pile, or another distinct pile, which is the hospital. And you have to cure those cards back into your deck or your flow before you score victory points for them. So if they're sitting off in the hospital by the end of the game, you get nothing for them. But the great thing about this game is the optimization. I love it. You're constantly thinking 2 to 3 turns ahead. You're very much like Lorenzo. You have 3 dice that are put into a rondel, and you can manipulate those dice. So they're hard to do, but you can manipulate them to get resources. And everyone has those same 3 dice to pull the resources from, and they're going to stay on the board. Some of those resources are perishable, so you have to use them that round. There's a lot of things to think about in this game. And it's one of those games, we talk about this all the time. It's one of those games where you play it and you have those turns round after round where it's super satisfying because you did like 3 or 4 things on one turn. You're like, yes, my plan went through. I did everything I needed to do. Now I got to rebuild that engine to do this, and I've got to get these cards on my board. I've got to complete these. It's just a really, really strong game.
Is it competitive? Or is it okay. I don't I've seen like the premise of the game when I first heard it made me sound like it was kind of a cooperative thing, like there's a blackout in Hong Kong and there's like almost like a pandemic.
Well,
there's
when you look at that board,
if
someone just looked at a picture of that board without anything else, I can totally see someone thinking pandemic.
Right, and that's all I've seen. I haven't gotten a chance to play it.
It's not the prettiest game to look at, but it's purely competitive.
Is it kind of mean back and forth with each other? Or?
No, you can't block spots. The only meanness is non-interactive things where you can take cards other people may want, but it's purely by what you can spend and what you can do.
Those are my favorite kind of games.
Yeah, Jeremy is the only one who's played this one so far, so
I really enjoy it. I really, really like it. Another one we played, and you and I can talk about this one, is Captains of the Gulf.
Yep.
And that was really high on your list. It wasn't even on my list.
That wasn't on mine either.
I don't feel like the game is super entertaining, but I like what it does, and I think the game is it 10 rounds? How many rounds do you play? I can't remember how
I
many
can't
rounds.
remember either.
But it plays over 8 rounds. It's 8 rounds. You have 4 A cards and 4 B cards that you're going to cycle through. I don't feel like the game really starts to go into its full momentum until like the 4th or 5th round. Those early rounds, you're just building your boat and struggling to do much.
Slower for sure.
It's super slow at the beginning of the game. But once you hit that 4th and 5th round and your boat has multiple different abilities, the game really starts to kick in and you start to strategize where you want to ship your fish to, which ports you want to go to. But up until then, it's just a real slow game.
Yeah, I definitely want to play it more. I've only played it the one time. Before Essen, I didn't realize, all I knew about it was that there was multi-use cards. And
Which you love.
The cards and the player boards reminded me of Lagrangia, which I also love.
Yeah.
What I didn't know is that it is largely a pick up and deliver game at its core, which is not my favorite type of game, and that sort of contributes to that slow aspect at the beginning, because it's just like, and it doesn't feel like there's a ton of different options or choices to make at the beginning. You're pretty much like, well, this is probably the best thing I could do right now. And I think I didn't like this in my first experience, but I think I'll like it long term. It revolves around building onto your boat.
Yeah,
like
you have to build a better boat.
That's what you're doing in this game. Is you're adding onto your boat, onto the left, to the right, and the top, and even on the boat to make it a better boat, so that you can do more and more and more, which leads to far more satisfying turns.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting game. The cards definitely start to give you some choices as to like, oh, I could use this to do this, but I really want, there's things that come up that make you want to use them for 2 different reasons, and you have to make that decision.
The other issue is like when you play Underwater Cities, the iconography is really good, and they have all that text on the bottom of the cards. This game, you really have to have someone who knows what the cards do so they can explain it to the character, to the other players, I'm sorry. Because the card icons don't really match up with what you're doing sometimes, so you have to read the back of that book and understand it to make it a far better experience.
And the game revolves around that.
Yes,
like,
you have to understand
the rest
cards.
of the game is very basic.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you're picking these fish up and taking them to port, basically, but it all revolves around those cards. So, yeah, we did get that one. We need to get a couple more plays of that before we review it, for sure.
What else?
There's Feld had 2 games come out at Essen, and now we've all played both of them, Carpe Diem and Forum Trojanum. And even though these are both Feld games, it's very hard to compare and say like, well, I like one over the other, because
Let's do it. Which one do you like better?
Yeah, I think
you like better?
I wanted to do
different.
this.
I think Forum Trojanum. I love Carpe Diem, but Forum has so much more going on. It feels way more satisfying.
It's more gamery. It's more gamery. It's something I think that's going to appeal to you and I more. I think you're going to like Carpe because the people that you play with, the ease of experience in playing it, who you can introduce it to. It's a quicker game. There's not as much explaining to go on. Having said that, they're both really good.
Yeah, I don't think this boils down to one being better than the other. Like you just said, the choice boils down to what kind of gamer are you.
Yeah.
I like both too, but Forum definitely leans probably on the heavier side, even for a Feld.
Sure, it's one of the heavier Felds I've ever played.
And Carpe is probably medium to light, right?
Yeah, it's on the
I mean,
other
it's
side
very
by far.
easy to play, and anyone can learn it. What I like about Carpe, I'll talk about that one, is it's super accessible, like we just said, but also I can't get over the variability in that game. It's an insane amount of variability, the way you set that thing up, all the different scoring cards that you can use. I mean, just the way the game works, the fact that tiles are going, it's very tactical. You have to take tiles when you can get them, and if someone else takes one, then you need to change up your strategy. It's really good.
Because I think we kind of looked through, and there's only like maybe 1 or 2 tiles of every.
There's not many.
There's not many of every orientation. So if one's gone.
It would be important on that note, I think, when you're playing with a new group, maybe even to share some of that information when you're playing, because you could easily go, oh, someone got that L-shaped grape field. I'll get the next one.
Right.
There isn't a next one.
Yeah.
There's one of those. So at least sharing that information might make it a better experience.
There's a lot of games we've already played, too, so go check out our channel for Teotihuacan. We have a Passing Through Petra review coming out. Architects of the West, Azul Sintra, Narcos, all those should be up at the time. Orbis, that comes up. Let's talk about real briefly, what are the games you're excited to play that you have not played yet from Essen?
Well, I think we just touched on one for me, and that's Blackout. I haven't had the chance to play that yet. Pfister is also one of my favorite designers. I've loved, I think, every Pfister game I've ever played. So I don't think this is going to disappoint me, despite I've heard the same complaints that the components just aren't the best quality, doesn't have the best table presence. But I don't care about that. I care about like the satisfying gameplay experience.
Well, this is based solely on the graphic design alone because I don't know much about the game. Although I think it's a cooperative game, and it looks beautiful. It's called Fuji.
Oh yeah.
I don't know who is that.
It's Wolfgang Warsch, and it's from I don't know the publisher.
Yeah.
I can tell you.
But it is a really cool looking game, and I'm hearing a ton about it. Like, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about it. I saw it, BGG Con showed it in their library as one of their featured games. So I definitely want to try that when I'm down there. But Fuji is probably the top of my list. And again, it's not based on much of anything else other than the way it looks and sort of the hotness that's surrounding right now. And I'm having a hard time remembering all the others that we haven't played.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of good ones. Great Western Trail, we played, but I don't think you played the expansion. There's a bunch of games that I had muled over. Thank you, Ella, for muling these back for us. But Concordia Venus, I want to see how different it is. I definitely want to play the 2 versus 2 mode because that sounds really, really intriguing. Santa Maria, I read through the rules of that. It's called American Kingdoms. It's got 4 modules, and the last module, which I haven't read through, but it seemed very interesting. And one player plays the game very differently, so I want to check that out.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, that seems really cool. And then the last 2 I want to mention are both expansions. The Feast for Own expansion, what I hope to play tomorrow, as well as Caverna Forgotten Folk, which gives each player their own player board with their own strengths and weaknesses. So there's things where you can build tiles very uniquely, and there's times where you can't build certain tiles at all in the game. So it's going to be cool to see how that plays out in Caverna.
On the hot heels of all those expansions, there's one expansion that I definitely want to play, and that's Armada for Seven
I forgot about that.
Like, I'm really hoping to get a chance to play that because Seven Wonders is one of those games we all love, but I can't remember the last time I played. Actually, we played it earlier this year once with someone who hadn't played it for a long time. Every time I play it, I'm like, man, this game, I forgot how good it is. Yeah. And Armada, I saw someone post just the other day that they thought Armada was by far easily the best expansion for Seven Wonders.
I think Steph said that.
Yeah,
Steph
it was Steph. It was Steph Hodge.
Well, I trust her. I mean, she's played them all. So.
She's right.
She must play a lot, man. Every day she's posting something. Here's 7 new games I played.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to mention, we kind of glossed over it, is Azul Sintra. I mean, you were looking forward to that quite a bit on your Essen list. It is a very similar yet different experience, and we have a review up, so you can take a look at that. I won't go into exhaustive detail here, but it is a very similar, and you'll be familiar with it, but also quite a bit different. I don't know that we concluded that we weren't sure that it was much more gamery than the original Azul. And you'll have to check out our review to see what we really think. But it's going to be good for fans of Azul. I'm just not sure if everyone's going to say, oh, let's play both tonight, because they're that similar.
Yeah, and I want to shout out one really quick small game, which is Bricks from Wolfgang Warsch. It's another roll and write that's coming soon to the States.
From Stronghold Games.
From Stronghold Games, I think. Is it Stronghold?
Yeah, Stronghold.
Okay. It's just great. It's just a great roll and write. Like, he is on a...
It's like a Tetris game, right?
He's on a roll with those roll and writes. I would play, at this point, any game that has Wolfgang Warsch's name on it, I'd probably give it a try.
Yeah, that guy's tearing it up.
Yeah, he really is.
I mean, ever since what? This Spiel earlier this year?
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard of him until this year.
Neither had I.
And he's had like 5 or 6 great games come out already.
That's pretty crazy.
One more shout out. If you guys haven't been paying attention, please go check out our 12 Days of Christmas giveaway. We are giving away 12 games over the next 12 days. These are all Man vs. Meeple 2018 approved titles. A lot of fantastic games here. All you have to do is make a comment on Twitter with hashtag MVM12days, and you'll be entered to win one of those 12 games.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that's it for this episode of Chit Chat. Those are all the games we've been playing from Essen. If you've had a chance to play any of the games from Essen, or any games for that matter, comment down below. Again, that will also enter you to win one of these games, or both of these games, next time we have an episode. Until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Well, that's another episode of Chit Chat in the bag. Thanks for watching. If you want to check out another one, there's probably one right over here in the bottom left-hand corner, or probably your right-hand corner. Whatever corner, we have something to click on. So click on one of these things and good things will happen.